Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tristan here. Today, I'm pretty excited because this will be the first episode in a series where me and Matt cover the most believable UFO stories in history, and I think some of you will really enjoy it, so if you do, don't forget to like and share because it always helps it to get it bumping in the algorithm. With all that out of the way, let's put our tinfoil hats on, point a flashlight straight into the night sky, and get right into this episode of the E.T Files. There's no better way to start this series than covering the abduction case of Betty and Barney Hill, which is an unsettling account that is hard to ignore and would gain worldwide attention. Barney and Betty Hill were residents of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Both of them were active members of their community. Barney worked for the Postal Service and Betty was a social worker. They were both civil rights activists and held memberships within the NAACP. On September 19th, 1961, they were both returning from a vacation in Canada when around 10:30 p.m., as they were just south of Lancaster, New Hampshire on Route 3, they spotted a bright light that continued to move closer to their direction. Betty insisted that Barney pull over after she also seen multicolored lights wisping around the moon. She wanted to get a closer look at the lights, and this would also be a good opportunity for them to walk their dog Desley and to stretch their legs. Barney would look at the light in the sky through binoculars and then said to Betty that it must have been a plane traveling to Montreal, until he also seen the multicolored lights flashing across the moon as well. And that's when the bright light in the sky began to move sporadically, with Betty and Barney Hill racing to their car. They were both certain at this point that it wasn't a plane, but they also had no idea what it was. The couple stated that they were following the light when after a while it began to speed rapidly towards their direction. Barney would describe it as a massive pancake-shaped craft. As it hovered over them, Barney would come to a complete stop as it blocked their field of view. Barney scrambled to grab his binoculars and a pistol that they kept in their glove box. Then he jumped out of the car and ran to the side of the road to get a better look at the craft. And this is where shit got really weird. Barney stated that he seen 11 to 8 humanoid-looking creatures peering back at him through the windows of the aircraft. They would all move back from the windows so he couldn't see them, except for one, where he said it communicated a message to him telepathically. It told him to stay calm and remain where he was. And after this, both their memories became really hazy on what happened next. And even the stuff I've stated already, they said was completely fragmented memories they had of that night. Because when they returned home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, they had almost completely forgotten that this had happened to them. They stated that they did have some memories of the light they saw, but they weren't really able to piece it together until after they were put under hypnosis.
It's all right. You can go right on, experience it. It will not hurt you now. I gotta get my gun.
This would lead to them having many doubters, as their story could have been brought on by this hypnosis. Mostly because Betty and Barney Hill also told stories of being abducted and experimented on, and the story just seemed way too far-fetched for some people to believe it. But what is really weird about this story is Betty was actually able to map out a star system that we didn't know about at this point in history. It's called the Zeta Reticuli star system, which wouldn't be discovered by scientists until way later on in the 1970s. Betty stated that the creatures that abducted her and Barney showed her a map of this star system and said this is where they came from. I'm not saying everything that Betty and Barney Hill said was true, but it's definitely really weird that she was able to map out a star system that scientists hadn't even discovered at that point. And another key component to this story is that Barney and Betty Hill were an interracial couple, so they probably tried everything in their path to avoid attention being drawn towards them. They also had pretty solid careers that there would be no reason for them to jeopardize. And with them also being members of the NAACP, I'm sure they took their roles very seriously and wouldn't want to tarnish their reputation. And the only reason being that they would lie about this is that there was a book and a movie that later came out about this story. But a lot of people have also said it's because Barney passed away in 1969 and Betty was just trying to make ends meet after her husband passed. And she did generally seem to be a pretty nice lady, and the media really tried to tear her down and make her seem crazy. And there was even a local who lived near Lancaster, New Hampshire, where they saw the UFO. And he created this whole map where he said there was basically telephone and communication towers that had lights on them that would have matched up completely with Betty and Barney Hill's direction at the time. But this also doesn't add up with all the other crazy shit that Betty and Barney Hill seen that night. But like I said, I don't think I believe everything is 100% true. Like they said themselves, their memories were extremely fragmented from this situation. But I do believe there is some truth to it, considering the Zeta Reticuli star system being mapped out by Betty. That fact alone leads me to believe there's some truth to it, but definitely take this story with a huge grain of salt. One thing though I think a lot of people can agree on is something really weird did happen to Betty and Barney Hill that night. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope it inspires you to look into it further for yourself, which I really do recommend to do because this story goes a lot deeper than what I just covered today. And the reason I wanted to make it is I definitely think it's one of those UFO stories that are just kind of hard to ignore. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and definitely leave a comment if you have anything to add on this subject, because I'm definitely really interested what you guys have to say about this story. And with all that, I'll catch you guys in the comments.